Welcome to House Talk on KAFM 88.1 Community Affairs. This is a monthly program that features local experts to discuss real estate topics of interest to home buyers and sellers in Mesa County. I'm your host. I'm Kate Porras. I'm a realtor at REMAX 4000. And as we always do, we'll kick off this segment with a few statistics for our local real estate market here in Mesa County. Average sales price continues to stay up there. We're right now at $323,000. That was through the month of September. That is up 9% from this time last year. So we have been seeing that continuing increase for a while now, and it keeps plugging along. Average days on market right now, about 83 days. That's down slightly. We were seeing around 90 days. So that's dipped just a little bit. A lot of that, I think, has to do with we have a lot of buyers out there that are just really ready to get into some homes. And we had 340 new homes come on the market in September, but just about that same number sold in September as well. So our whole inventory of supply, if we get no more homes coming on the market, we would run out of homes to sell in just over 1 month. So that inventory remains low in Mesa County. That demand is there. The buyers are still excited. Still a lot of showings happening all across the valley, and a good, strong market here in Mesa County. As you've noticed, though, probably when you're waking up in the morning, those temperatures are a little bit chilly. Definitely is feeling like fall in our area. In fact, weather forecasters, they're expecting some overnight temperatures to drop down into the 30s, I think even Thursday night into Friday morning. So we're starting to feel that real cool morning air. And that has some property owners scrambling to make sure that they have their yards, lawns, bushes, trees, flowers, everything ready to go for this fall season as we head inch closer and closer to winter. So our special guest today, Melissa Slabaugh from the Landscape Center here in Grand Junction. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us. Have you been busy lately?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now is the time to get the winterizing done, get your leaves cleaned up as they fall, trim back those shrubs, and take care of your trees. So, yeah, we're seeing a lot of it.
We were chatting right before the show started that it feels like we're actually having a fall this year. It's been a few years where
it
didn't seem like that, but this actually feels like fall this year.
It has, and it's nice. I mean, we like to have our seasons instead of it just going from really hot to really cold. So I like it. I mean, I think everybody does.
So with the temperatures starting to dip down, into the 30s this week overnight, we're not quite those hard freezing temperatures yet, but we know they're coming. They're just around the corner. What do people need to be thinking about right now?
So as the forecast kind of falls down, we like to see it gradually go down. Obviously, get everything ready, but that freezing temp is just going to pop up. It'll just come. So as long as it stays above the freezing mark, so right at that 32 degrees, you're kind of safe with irrigation. You're probably stopping to water, and you're getting your fertilizer in, which is all things that you want to do.
I know that we did our last round of fertilizer for our lawn yesterday, trying to get that ready. What are people fertilizing right now for? It's not the growing season, obviously. We're not trying to make it grow more. What are we putting on our lawns right now that's helpful?
So right now you're using a fertilizer blend. We call it the fall fertilizing. So it's a slow release. So what it's going to do is it's going to feed that lawn throughout the winter while it goes into the dormant season. And then in the spring, before you even put on your spring fertilizer, it kind of gives a little food to say, hey, time to wake up when the temps warm up.
So as they start hibernating, we're giving that last little boost before we go into hibernation for our lawns.
Exactly. And it's always good to use a fertilizer with a weed control blend. So it also kind of kills off those weeds that might not have popped up yet, because we all know that weeds grow faster than anything else.
That is for sure. That is for sure. You're listening to House Talk on KAFM Grand Junction. In the studio today, Melissa Slabaugh with the Landscape Center. You mentioned irrigation. We got our notice from our HOA that our irrigation is going to be shut off, I think, next week, and they're going to start blowing out systems. What do people need to be thinking about when it comes to their irrigation systems right now?
So when it comes to winterizing, you definitely have to blow out those systems. So that letter you're getting from your HOA is very important, because you really don't want to blow out your system until your irrigation water is off. I've had people blow out too soon, and then the irrigation water is still on, and it can get past those main valves. Maybe one of the kids accidentally open it back up, and then you have to do it all over again. So it's super important to make sure that you know when your water is going to be turned off.
How can you tell? Is there a way to tell when you're at home?
Most HOA companies, they will put out a letter to everybody letting them know when, but you don't always have an HOA. Some people have domestic systems. Some people have pumps where they're pumping out of a pond. So it's just kind of, luckily, those people who don't get to dictate when the water comes in and out, they can water a little bit longer. So it would be based off of weather and kind of how things are growing.
So you just need to know your system well.
Yeah, and if you don't, usually the person caring for your system does. So it's always good to use a professional if that's something that you're not comfortable dealing with.
Is there a way to not correctly blow out your system?
There is. So maybe a valve doesn't open when you've got the system hooked up and you don't blow out a line. It's very important to make sure you know how many zones you have, how many valves, if you have hose bibs or other things that are hooked to the main line. It's important to get all of that water out.
Can you do it yourself?
You can. So if you have I think it's like a 20 or so gallon tank of just like an air compressor at home, a lot of the times you can hook up, but it all depends on your pipe size. So if you have a really big system, chances are that little air compressor is not going to push enough air to get through there.
And that's when you would probably want to look into hiring someone that has a bigger system.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to hiring people, just make sure that they have a little experience doing it, because I've seen, some trauma. You get too much air, you blow lines, if you don't blow it out correctly, it can freeze and you won't know until the next spring, and then you've got a geyser somewhere.
So you can have everything, think you're done, ready to go for the winter, turn on the irrigation next spring, and
yeah, not so
good.
Lucky. So a lot of the time, some companies offer a guarantee. So if they winterize for you and then come back and start it up, they guarantee that it's all going to be good.
Perfect. Are there parts of the valley that need to be more concerned before others? I know we have slightly different elevations and things like that.
Yeah, so anytime you're near the river or a lake, temperatures tend to be a couple degrees cooler. I know the irrigation system in Junction works kind of from the west to the east, so they start turning it off that end. Palisade is usually the last on the list. So, and then obviously if there's no water in the ditch, you can't pull water. So just watch for that, really.
And we talked about it's not going to get into those super freezing temperatures where we really get worried. But what if, next week things change and we do have a real cold snap and you haven't blown out your system yet? Do you need to be worried, or things you can do?
And so that can happen. I mean, I've seen it to where we'll get a freezing temp just out of the blue. Best thing for that, if you have a backflow or a pump that's outdoors, is to wrap it up really thick blankets. Even heat tape helps too. So most of the stuff underground, it doesn't just freeze. Just because it's 32 doesn't mean it's going to freeze the soil. So it's the above ground stuff that you have to watch for.
You're listening to House Talk on KAFM Grand Junction, and in the studio today, Melissa Slaybaugh with the Landscape Center. So we've talked a lot about irrigation. We've talked some about fertilization. Are there things that we need to be doing for our other parts of our landscape, not just our lawn, trees, shrubs, flowers? A lot of people have some beautiful fall flowers out right now. But what about for the rest of the year? What do we need to be thinking about?
So when it comes to your landscaping, all your plants, your trees, your shrubs, they all require different amounts of care. Say we have a really dry winter. If you're not getting any moisture, but the temps tend to be warmer, nice sunny days, winter watering is super important. Those shrubs and trees are sitting there drying out just like we would. So if we do not get any Mother Nature weather, then it's always great to hand water, especially your evergreens. Your evergreens need that water. I mean, they continue to be green throughout the winter.
Is now a time to be planting anything?
You can plant, but remember, if you don't have water, you're going to have to give it water. So if you're planting late in the fall, a lot of hand watering is going to be necessary, especially right now. I mean, we're still in the 70s and not quite freezing at night. The plants need the water to root in. So until they're properly rooted in, they need that everyday watering.
I wonder if some of that comes into play as well. Your irrigation gets shut off, everybody gets everything blown out, and then we end up having, a real warm November or whatnot. That could come into play even quicker than if we just wait for the snow to fall.
Oh, absolutely, especially here in the valley. I mean, I think last year, Thanksgiving, everybody was in a t-shirt. Sometimes you get that exceptional warmth here, which is great. I mean, it's a nice little surprise, but you also got to think of your plants and your trees. So usually if you get a nice warm day, throughout the warmest part of that day, you want to give a little bit of water, but you also want to allow for a couple hours of still warmth. That way it kind of saturates in and it doesn't freeze.
What about just taking care of things as far as pruning and whatnot goes? I know leaves are falling, so you got to get those out. I know the city's already starting, if you're in the city limits, the city started their leaf pickup program. What do people need to be considering when it comes to pruning and that type of thing? So
the pruning before your dormant season is important. You want to most of your perennials you want to cut all the way back. Your shrubs you want to cut back a little bit. You don't really want to bother anything that's flowering. So your mums and your fall asters, you're going to kind of leave those. But picking up your leaves is super important. A lot of people think, oh, I don't need to pick up my leaves till the spring, but they can gather around the plants and they can actually mildew. So it's super important that you try to clean most of those up in the fall and then get the lingering leaves in the spring when you do your dormant season.
I know some people that will blow all their leaves onto their lawn and then kind of mulch them in. Good or bad?
No, that's good. If you have a good mulcher, you don't want to do that if it's still leaving really big chunks of leaves on. But if it mulches really good, it can mulch in with the grass that you're cutting also. Another good thing is to bag it up off of the lawn. It's easier than trying to rake it or blow it out of the bark or rock that you may have.
Yeah, get some exercise in there while you're getting your landscaping all spruced up. And, and again, the city's leaf pickup program is out there too. It's a great resource for people that live in the city limits. So that's helpful as well.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing service. So they allow you to put all of your leaves out on the curb, I believe it is, and then they'll pick them up with their big vacuum trucks, which are awesome.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, Melissa, you provided us with a ton of good information. If people have more questions, how can they get a hold of you?
They can contact our office, 970-241-0297. And we have a couple good people in the office who can direct their call in the right direction.
Perfect. Melissa Slaybaugh with the Landscape Center. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you have other questions for me, feel free to give me a call as well, 970-985-8555, or reach my website, kate@kateporus.com. This segment airs on the second Wednesday of each month, and you can also listen to podcasts on demand at kafmradio.org. And make sure to join us next month for another edition of House Talk. We'll talk to you soon.